Let's bring in Deke Digital co-founder and president Dave Maney for more. Dave, you've been following the results, watching the stock, which is popping after hours. What do you make of Apple's results?
Well, a couple of things. On the surface, it certainly remains one of America's most amazing companies, or one of the world's most amazing companies. Second, Tim Cook, I think, is to management what Steve Jobs was to being a visionary, which is he's incredibly good at what he does. But the third thing is, and this is the big picture and the longer term thing, if you look at where the company wants to go, it consistently wants to build areas of its business where it does not have the proprietary pricing power, or it does not have the kind of originality or inspirational please buy me product features that it does in other areas. And so I think it's going to be challenging to keep up pricing and keep up margins and keep up growth.
Is the fact that we just heard from Tim Cook on the earnings call as well, talking about the rollout of the Apple Card, you know, this partnership that they have with Goldman Sachs. That's going to happen next month. So that's interesting. Don't forget, wearables was up 50% in the quarter. Mac, iPad sales are still growing as well. And it looks like it was a record quarter when it comes to music, cloud, and care. So as you mentioned, I mean, they are diversifying and they're trying to find growth in other areas, especially when iPhones are not selling at the levels that they used to.
But those other areas are not ones in which they have kind of a world-beating product. An Apple Music service is not markedly different from Spotify, and an Apple home speaker is not markedly different from an Amazon home speaker. So it's not the same as when you had these devices during the Jobs era or the end of the Jobs era that were like nothing else you could get anywhere.
Dave, this is Christina Partsinevelos. I want to talk about just the future 5G technology. On Mac Rumors today, there was a report saying that there's potentially 2 new phones for 2020 that would encompass 5G technology. But speaking of 5G, the acquisition of the Intel properties, what do you make of that, the modem business? And what hurdles do you think Apple could face in the near future?
Well, look, overall in that whole notion of how it's changing and where that goes on that 5G thing, you know, that rollout is amazingly complex, multi-spectrum, many different players sort of announcing plans. Charlie Ergen here in Denver wants to be a player in it. It's going to happen. It's going to be slower than I think any of the companies would like to have you believe. And I think that it is going to be an important driver in device sales, but I'm not sure that it changes or is any different for Apple than it is for anybody else who makes devices. There's going to have to be some replacement at the time that it's rolled out, but I believe we're looking at 2 to 3 years out before any of us feels real differentiation in those kind of services.
Dave, it's Jackie DeAngelis. Apple was one of the first to sound the alarm and the warning bell in terms of sales in China and have the markets thinking about China and trade and how it would impact all of these businesses this year. But it doesn't sound like we're hearing it's a problem right now. Do you think that we can assume that at least for the time being or until a deal is struck, sales, not just for Apple, but for the whole tech industry, are doing okay?
I can't reveal a gigantic slice of knowledge about that. I think there's this kind of what we could all feel right now is I wouldn't even call it an uneasy truce. I'd call it more like an uneasy ceasefire where at the moment there's, you know, nobody's taking the draconian steps that say you're out of here or you're out of there. And I think that's generally good news. But our two systems are so dramatically different that I don't think you can assume that 2 doctrinaire leaders, as both countries now have, are going to easily settle those things. And so I think that remains up for grabs.
Hey, Dave, it's Scott Martin. You know, one thing I've loved about Apple and kind of these product updates, if you will, that they do is the fact that they're going up so much in price. Susan alluded to it. I mean, 4 figures. You know, these phones nowadays that are out there that people are buying are $1,000. And I've got an iPhone 7 here, and I got caught in the washing machine of this product cycle upgrade because of the fact, guys, that they do these iOS updates. And guess what that does? That kills the battery on this thing that I used to love so much. And now I'm forced to buy a more pricey phone because of the fact that the battery is getting so smoked and destroyed by all those updates. Isn't that exciting for you, given the fact that they've got another product cycle upgrade coming in a couple of months with respect to their bottom line?
Just a minute. I have a 7 here, and I made a few adjustments in my settings, and my battery seems to last forever now.
Peter, I will go. Yeah, that's really,
totally
you're not running it properly. I will go toe-to-toe with you on battery on the iPhone 7, my friend.
There's no conspiracy here.
Oh, come on. Everybody knows it.
And Scott, look.
I don't know it, and I got a PhD.
So, Scott, it sounds like you're not buying this stock,
iPhones?
huh?
No, and
Or
Jonathan,
Apple,
that's a
for
reason.
that matter.
That's a reason to buy the stock. We own the stock, and that's a reason to buy it. I'm telling you, folks are going to be forced to upgrade their phones as they keep doing the iOS updates, as the product cycles continue.
I don't
because
see
of
that
that.
as
let me just say, look, guys, look, I got to cut it because
with respect to battery issues.
look, we got to run.